All right, so he says, what should a divine command theorist say about Peterson's excellent example of Anthony? So this is her, she gives a story here. And so Anthony was the personal trainer who was being pressured by the gym to engage in immoral practices in order to, get people to sign up and that sort of thing.
Hmm.
And he says he agrees with her conclusion that he should either quit, right, if he's being forced to do these immoral things, or remain where he is and be salt and light, which will be, uncomfortable for him and will probably not last very long. But why should he do this? He asks. And he says that Peterson says it's because it cannot be right to make the fulfillment of a monetary obligation, such as paying rent to a landlord, so important that one is willing to deceive other people to do so. So why should Anthony be concerned with this immoral actions that practices that he's being forced to do? Well, he said her answer is it can't be right to make fulfillment of monetary obligations like paying rent to a landlord so important that we're willing to deceive other people to do so. That just can't be right. And he says, yeah, I agree with that. But then how do we know that this cannot be right? Right? Do we know it because it goes against our nature to deceive, in order to have a place to live? And he says Peterson would have to say something like, such deception might fill our sin nature, but not our created nature. But he says, but how do we know this about our created nature? Surely it is because we have defined our created nature as precluding moral wrong, and we have defined moral right in terms of telling the truth. And we know we ought to tell the truth because we have, been so commanded. So he's suggesting here that really the only way we know what the morally right thing to do is not really based on our human nature, it's based on how God has commanded. And that's how we get to what is morally right and wrong, because he keeps asking the question, how do we know that this is the morally right thing to do? Well, because you shouldn't lie to people even just to pay the landlord. Okay, why not? Right? Well, it's just not the morally. Well, now you've built your moral into the human nature, and you're back to this, question begging circular argument again. That's
Yeah.
what he.
Yeah. And it's almost like you need a command from a divine perspective.
Yeah.
Well, and let me be everyone's friend and talk about the goodness of the landlord. Well, by not paying the landlord rent, you're also taking money away from him, and he's unable to feed his children because of it. And so,
So why is that the morally right thing?
right? Sorry, I'm going to be late on my rent because I'm sticking up for my principles of not being deceptive here. It's like, well, okay, but my children will have to go without food because of your actions. But I'm moral in that case. But you've made an agreement. You've said I will give you this, and you will give me this. They're upholding one end of the bargain, and you say, no, actually, I'm lying about it. I'm not able to, or I'm not going to fulfill it. I'm able to, right? He would be able to engage in immoral practices or find some other way. Obviously, we can nitpick the situation to death and say, oh, there's a way out of this, but that would belabor the point. But it seems like we're not thinking of all the actors in the picture there as well.
Right. So notice. So you've raised another issue here, right? The first issue is not only does human nature not determine morality, is what he's arguing here. When there's a conflict in moral principles, appealing to human nature doesn't resolve the conflict for us, right? And so it's bad on two accounts in terms of basing morality just on human nature.